C. Kevin Rowe makes a very provocative statement. He says, "The vision of the human as the image of God's image is the vision that has marked all subsequent ethics in the West down through the ages." Okay, so this one sentence from this part of the book, he says, I just want to read it again so you hear it. "The vision of the human as the image of God's image is the vision that has marked all subsequent ethics in the West down through the ages." So he's saying that like the heart of not Christian ethics, Western ethics, what we think, our very concepts of like human decency, how you treat others, why we get outraged when we watch the news and we see genocide happening and things like this. He's saying the reason that you are bothered by those things is because of the gospel, because Jesus has come and said people deserve better because they're made they have an inherent human dignity that is given to them by God. They share in the image and the likeness of God. We take this for granted today. This is part of what C. Kevin Rowe is saying. Is like, this is just, seems common sense to us. Nobody questions this, that every human being has an inherent dignity. We talk more in terms of human rights now, and I think that's a lesser concept than human dignity, but still, it comes from the same place. This idea that every single person has rights, and you have to treat them a certain way. That's just sort of, basic standards of ethics, right? And he's saying you can't have that if the church doesn't come and preach it. So for 2,000 years, basically, this has been the dominant view of human ethics, and it comes from the church. One place where I think you see this, like, really in real concrete terms is in Matthew chapter 25. Sometimes it's called the parable of the sheep and the goats. It's the story about the judgment at the end of time. And you can go read it yourself later. It's in Matthew chapter 25, but I'll just kind of tell you what's there for the time. And probably many of you have already heard this. So Jesus says to his disciples, he's been telling a number of stories about basically the consummation of history. He's saying that, when the Son of Man comes back, this is what's going to be like. This is what judgment's going to be like. And then he kind of concludes with this story about the Son of Man coming and separating all of humanity into two groups, the sheep and the goats. And he has the sheep sit at his right hand, and he has the goats come and sit at his left hand. And he says to the sheep, he says, "Come and receive the blessings that have been prepared for you from eternity. Because when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me to drink. You did all of these things for me." And the sheep reply, "Lord, when did we ever see you hungry or naked or in prison or sick and do all these good things for you?" And Jesus responds, "Amen, amen. I say to you, any time that you saw me, anything that you did for the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me." This is where you get this idea that the poor, the vulnerable, that what you do for them is actually serving Christ. That they're in a way proxy. They're sort of since Jesus is not here in front of you for you to serve in that way, if you serve the poor, you're actually serving Jesus. And consequently, then he turns to the goats and he says, "Go into the lake of fire that is prepared for the devil and his angels, because I was hungry and you did not feed me. I was naked, you did not clothe me. I was sick, you did not come and take care of me. I was in prison, you didn't come visit me." And they say, "Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and not feed you?" And they go through the list. And Jesus says, "Amen, amen, I tell you, whenever you saw one of the least brothers of mine in need of all these things, and you did not give them what they needed, you didn't give it to me. Okay? So here we have a real concrete story that sort of puts us all in perspective, that actually every single individual that we interact with, especially the poor, the vulnerable, the weak, the sick, the hungry, especially those people, are an opportunity that they are actually Christ. Saint Mother Teresa, she said to once something along the lines that Christ comes to us in the disturbing, the disturbing mask of the poor. So when we encounter the poor, it's an opportunity to love Jesus. And it also tells us something about the dignity of the poor that we serve. A lot of times when we think in terms of charity, we can have this sort of attitude that, like, oh, these lowly people, I'm doing this because I'm such a good person. And Jesus sort of flips this and says, no, actually, when you serve the poor, you're serving me. And that changes this dynamic of power, doesn't it? Because it's not so much about me helping them out, it's actually me serving Christ through this poor person in front of me.